A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is directed by Mario Heather, and it stars Tom Hanks as the legendary Mr. Rogers. Now, this is a very unique film because it is actually not about Mr. Rogers at all, but it is more about how Mr. Rogers affects the people around him. This story, which is based on true events, is about Lloyd Vogel, a writer for Esquire magazine, when he is tasked on doing a profile on Mr. Rogers. This character, really well played by Matthew Rhys, is the prime example of a person who really needs the lessons of Fred Rogers in their lives. And guys, I really loved this film. There is something about Mr. Rogers that really gets after my heart, even though I have never seen an episode of his show. I feel like I've always been familiar with Mr. Rogers, but it wasn't until I saw the documentary Will You Be My Neighbor before I really understood what Fred Rogers really stood for and what he did for the world. And Tom Hanks does a really awesome job of showing us what makes Fred Rogers special. This is a prime example of an actor disappearing into a role, and I would not be surprised if he got nominated for an Oscar for his portrayal for many people's childhood hero. Everything that Tom Hanks does in this movie is very, very subtle, which is brilliant because that's how Mr. Rogers was too. He wasn't a loud, bombastic human being. He was very quiet, and he liked to sit there in silence while he tried to understand the people around him and how he was going to help them. Which leads me to another brilliant thing that this movie does, that even though the show that he made was really geared towards kids, the lessons that he was teaching them really translates to anybody, not just kids, but adults as well. This movie tackles a lot of hard topics. Just like Mr. Rogers, it tackles them with finesse and understanding. And I really love Mario Heather's awesome idea of making this movie like an episode of the show. The very beginning of this movie is the intro to the show. Him walking into the house singing, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be my? Could you be my?" And from there, it's exactly like an episode. Even the transitions when it travels to different locations, she decided to make practical props just like the show. And I thought that was really awesome because it really draws you in. It really puts you in the world of Mr. Rogers. And it feels like an episode of the show. And the lessons it teaches you is exactly like the show. It's just so many feelings. So many. I also want to talk about this movie's excellent use of silence. There are many moments in this film that Mario Heather decided to just let the audience sit in quiet. Especially there's this scene in this diner where Fred Rogers asks Lloyd to sit and think about all the people in his life that made him the person he is today. And while he does that, everybody else in the diner happens to do the same. They all sit in quiet. And then all of a sudden, all the ambient noises, all the cars outside, everything just kind of melts away. And it leaves the audience sitting in quiet as well. And this really brilliant shot where it's focused on Fred Rogers while he's looking at Lloyd, but very subtly, he turns his focus towards the camera and he invites the audience into the moment. And I don't think I've ever felt so included, so warm, so comforted by a moment in a movie like this. And that is super special. And it's something that I'm not going to forget for a long time. That is the power of this movie, and that is the power of Mr. Rogers. And with this movie and the documentary coming out, I came to a realization that I want to be Mr. Rogers when I grow up. The way he spreads positivity and warmth across the world is something that I have yet to experience anywhere else. And it's something that I hope to accomplish in my life as well. I want to be the source of comfort and enjoyment for as many people as possible. And even if I never reach the heights of Fred Rogers, which I, let's be honest, probably won't, if I could just do it for the people around me or the people I interact with on a daily basis, I consider that an achievement as well. In the end, I think everybody should see this film. Everybody should see this film and listen to what Fred Rogers needs to say to the world, learn from Mr. Rogers and how he views everybody, his lessons. As I said, he touches my heart. It's, yeah. Go see this film. And go check out the documentary that came out last year. Watch both of them. They're really great companion pieces for each other. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye!